let's dive into some of the charming traits of a psychopath and a sociopath. You could give us some examples. Let's just say, let's start in dating.
In dating, there's a couple signs. So if they were to ask you right away, what do you want out of this relationship? That's a huge red flag, because they're going to use that information and use it against you later. Because if you say, I want a family, what are they going to do? They're going to build a fantasy for you, custom made for you, just to get you to believe that they can give that to you, even if they feel that they can't, or they know that they can't. But they want companionship. They want that supply, because that is detrimental to their survival. So if it's detrimental to their survival, they're going to do whatever it takes to survive, period. We all do. And so that's how they get to you, is they find your greatest weaknesses or your biggest desires, and then they build upon that, and then they use it against you later. And they make you question, and they make you confused, and it's a whole cycle of abuse that goes on. It's like that love bombing phase that they put you through. That's the fantasy building. That's the, I'm going to give you the world. And I feel like they truly want that. Like they want to do that naturally, but they know that they can't sustain it. So once they have you hooked, it's like, okay, I could go back to where I was before. And then that's when the discard phase happens. And that's when they push you away. And then when they feel you growing distant and they see you hurting, but then they dissociate from that right away. Like that doesn't register with them, because how can you look at somebody knowing that you hurt them and feel that much pain and stay? You just can't. And so their body is just like in survival mode. Okay, like I don't care. You can hurt because you're bad, so I can be great because I don't know who I am and I don't feel good enough. And so then they start to, when they start to lose you and they know it, that's when they hoover around you. And that's when the love bombing happens again. Like they figure out, okay, so what is it going to take for them to stay with me even after I've hurt them? And sociopaths can feel that, oh, I hurt you, like I'm so sorry, like, but I'm going to continue because I don't know how to deal with myself. Whereas narcissists, like, I don't care. It's your problem. You deal with it. And then, but I'm going to give you what you want, so that way you become re-addicted to me, and that's how you stay.
That's very similar to a narcissist.
Yeah.
Identical.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that narcissist is a behavior of a sociopath, psychopath?
I would say that they're one and the same. I would say that psychopaths, sociopaths, and, again, we're at common terms, right? Psychopath, sociopath, but I always know them as either antisocial or narcissist personality disorder. So I look at the different types of symptoms that we're dealing with. It's all trauma. Like, regardless of what the DSM-5 says, it's all trauma. And psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, borderline, like all of it's trauma. And all of it's bred through pain. And we just don't know how to deal with the pain, so therefore it becomes a personality disorder that just takes its course.
Okay, let's dive into some more behaviors that we would see in dating a sociopath, because you gave one great example, but I want the community to have more examples that they can relate to or identify in the beginning of dating somebody. I mean, because it's like you've mentioned, they come across as very charming and sweet, and they come in as the rescuer, and they're really good at rescuing because that's what they do. And when you've been through trauma, as you stated before, we love to be rescued, and everybody's been through trauma. So when you're dating, what are some of the behaviors that you'll see when dating what are some more of the behaviors that you're going to identify or see when you're dating a sociopath? In fact, if you could just walk us through an actual beginning of a dating relationship, what are the telltale signs that an individual could spot?
For sociopaths, they're going to be very trying to be very connective. Some might be very pushy for information. Some might just be like they will be there and aware, and they'll be super attentive. And they will hang on to your every single word because they're trying to gather information at this point. And so it's going to be too good to be true. They're going to want to agree with you on a lot of things of like, oh yeah, this, and they'll try and relate it to something that they have done or said. But the biggest thing is like push for information. And then they're going to try and relate to you and to attach quick. And the quicker that they can attach, the better. So time is the best thing for this, because if you just sit back and observe, you'll see their behaviors come out. And if they know that you're not interested, so I always say be half interested and half not. If they know that you're not fully invested in them right away, they're going to leave because they're not going to waste their time. So that is a huge sign that they're not in it for the right things, intention-wise.
I really feel like we need to dive into more examples of dating a sociopath. They, like you mentioned, they can be very charming. And I think that we can all probably agree that we've all probably met one and potentially even dated one. How could we not? Because everybody's been through trauma. So I think our listeners and our viewers, as they watch this and they listen to this, they're going to be able to relate. But for those that are maybe just kind of freshly getting into dating, maybe just coming out of high school or even in high school and so on, what are some other examples of behaviors that people can identify or red flags that they can identify in dating a sociopath, just in the dating field? And I think this is so important because we are dealing with so many tragic murders, and we'll dive into that later. But we've got these good human beings, these both male and female, that are good people that are targeted by a psychopath or a sociopath. And so we really need to just dive into this, because I don't feel like, in my experience, I haven't been able to find a mental health expert diving into examples that the community could actually relate to.
I think a big one is abuse. And it'll start off small. And it'll start off with comments. It'll start off with, oh, you're going to wear that? Oh, yeah, I don't really like that. Or they will start to create doubt in your mind by certain subtle things that they say. And whereas like every psychopath is narcissistic, a sociopath may not exhibit narcissistic traits right away. They have a ton of narcissistic traits, but not every sociopath is a narcissist, right? And not every narcissist is a psychopath. But there's these big triggers that happen that you can rely on your gut to tell you. And because a lot of the things that they do are subconscious. A lot of the things that they do, they say, the way they move, the nonverbals that they use, all those are meant to trigger your subconscious to get you to do something without actually realizing that you're doing something, that you're falling for them or you're connecting to them. So they are creating this illusion for you. I'm a comic book nerd, so I always use Mysterio, right? Mysterio creates a world for you. And you are not going to realize that you're going to get sucked into it unless you are very vigilant. And so these certain things will, of course, be too good to be true. That is true. It is too good to be true. Keep your distance and take your time. And certain things that they say, certain things that they do. So if they were to take you out to dinner and they're hanging on your every word and they're just like right up in your face and they're like, yeah, tell me more, yeah. But then they like sit back and then they start to judge. make little judgmental comments here. Look at the way that they treat people. Look at the way that they treat their server or your server. If they are complaining about the menu or negative, and I'm not saying every negative person is this, but what I'm saying is that there are certain little subtle things that you can hang on to the first time that you go on a date, because you're not going to find a lot of things on the first date, but you are going to find things throughout time. And that's why I'm saying, like, give it time, because these little things will start to pop up. How do they treat their parents? What's their relationship like with their siblings? Do they have friends, or are they isolated? Or do they use a work excuse? I work all the time, so therefore my relationships aren't that good. Like, red flag. Like, just keep your time with it, because it's like you see this red flag, but then you kind of dismiss it, right? Because it's like, oh, this person is very charming. They're showing up like this. They're very nicely dressed. They're highly successful. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of wealth. They have a lot of power. They have a lot of influence. And I mean, we're just naturally attracted to that. So they might use that too in order to gain control over you. So I would always say, be careful and be cautious with that, whoever you're dating, right at first, and take your time to get to know this person and observe their behaviors, and your gut will tell you if something is off.
How many dates would you say it takes to start identifying some of these behaviors?
For sociopaths, you can see it almost right away, because they are so impulsive, because they are very rageful. So, and they don't really, nothing is really premeditated. Whereas a narcissist will take a little bit longer. A psychopath, you're gonna tell right away that something's off, because they're not gonna be connective at all. They're gonna be very cold and judgy, and they're not going to feel any shame or guilt. And I always say, like, get into a car with them. See how they drive. If they are king of the road, if queen of the road, right? If they are in control and they're like, oh, you people need to, like, move out of my way, and it's all about me, 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 me. And even conversations at dinner, if it's all about me, 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 or if they're hanging on every word, but then they make it about them, that's a red flag too.
How can you spot that in a dialogue with somebody where you may feel like, with a sociopath, that they are sincere, and you talk about them hanging on to your every word? So how could our community begin to identify what's the difference between somebody who's genuine and showing a valid interest, charismatic, does care, may come across as charming, but could embody a lot of those, I would say, similar qualities and behaviors? So how do you tell the difference between something healthy in somebody who is genuine, showing that interest, and somebody who is a sociopath?
Their words match their actions, always. Because remember, they're starting to build a fantasy world for you. Their actions aren't going to match up with their words. Look at their life, look at their lifestyle. Is it consistent across the board? Consistency is key, 100%.
So diving into some more examples of dating somebody, let's just say, a few weeks into going on dates with an individual where a male and female could be just feel like they're swept off their feet, and they've met the right person, and he comes across, or she comes across, as just perfect for you. You've met your soulmate. How does one, as time goes on, start to identify and spot some of these red flags and behaviors? What can they relate to?
Well, first, I would say be careful because that soulmate feeling is a high. It's dopamine, which is what they're doing in order to create that feeling within you. They are releasing dopamine to get you addicted, to get you high in that feeling. So I always say, watch your feelings. Mind your feelings,
Right.
and make sure that they are in the right intensity scale. And the intensity scale is, you can be excited, you can be nervous, excited, but if you are head over heels, you're ready to commit after the first date, no. Now we're saying, like, we've been on a couple dates, it's been a few weeks. Now control comes in. So they'll ask you, who are you talking to? Can I see your phone? They'll try and maybe even break into your phone just to see who you're talking to. I've had a couple clients where the iPhone has a face ID. And so they would shine it on their face when they're sleeping, unlock their phone, and go through their phone while they're sleeping. And certain behaviors like that, they'll ask a lot of questions. They'll start to be demanding. They might play a victim. Psychopaths will be very demanding. Sociopaths will be more of a victim of, like, oh, poor me, like, oh, my finances aren't, that great, or I forgot my wallet somewhere. Do you think that you pay for this one? Or there's certain things to get you to either be the victim or be the savior, depending on what their aim is, what their goal is.
I had a friend who was dating somebody a while back, and it actually just sparks a memory of a conversation that I had with her. And she talked about how she was going on just a couple dates, and by the third date, she's on cloud 9 and she's super happy. And then after the third date, he was really upset that she hadn't offered to pay for the second or even the third date after. But I want to dive into an actual example a little bit further that maybe our listeners could relate to.
Yeah, definitely. It could be a red flag, or it could just be that that person wants you to pay because they have this expectation in their mind that you're going to meet, and that expectation wasn't discussed prior. So they almost have that expectation, you don't meet it, they develop a resentment. And the resentments are, to them, to psychopaths, resentments are dangerous. They have resentment against you, you're a target. Sociopaths, if they have a resentment, they're just angry. And so they're going to express that anger. And narcissists, if they have a resentment against you, then they're going to hold it and they're going to use that because you have now made them out to be the bad person. They can't be bad, they have to be good always. And so you just ignited that. And I would always say, like, time is a big factor because it's a multitude of symptoms. It's not just one or two here and there that allude to, oh, this person is who they are. You really have to dive in deep. You need to know what they're doing, observe their behavior on a consistent basis, and then make a determination from there. Someone just can't come into my office and then say, oh, I have some behaviors, and be like, yep, you're a narcissist, or yep, you're a borderline. Like, I can't do that because there's so much that goes into it, and everybody has narcissistic traits in them. Everybody in the world, there's a reason why we have these traits, but they're less intense. They're not on again, intensity scale. It's not a personality disorder that a lot of the people that are quote unquote normal, and of course, what's normal, right? I hate that word, but the people who are not.
But an example in this case, I think I'm just trying to understand, is this a red flag in the beginning to run for the hills?
I would say that anger is a red flag, not the situation in itself. And obviously this person can't regulate their own emotions. And if they can't regulate their own emotions, that is a telltale sign. But it doesn't mean that they are. It's just, this is a red flag for you to watch out for more of those things.